to have your camera on as the program is being recorded and live on Facebook. Any questions for the presenter can be put into the chat box. My name is Cassandra Race. I work here at the Allison Jackburt Public Library. Thank you for joining us tonight for our Evening Sessions program. Evening Sessions is the monthly adult program series featuring a fun and engaging mix of presentations, lectures, workshops, demonstrations, author visits, and performances on topics covering the arts, culture, history, science, and more. Our next Evening Sessions program is going to be on Wednesday, October 20th at 7 p.m. virtual only on Zoom, and that will be the Orphan Train Era presented by Al and Dave Eicher. We hope you can join us for that. We also have a virtual book discussion for the NEA Big Read, House on Mango Street, October 27th. Contact your local branch for any details on that. Now I would like to introduce to you Stephen Mack Jones. He is an award-winning playwright and recipient of the prestigious Kresge Arts and Detroit Literary Fellowship, author of the Hammett Prize, Nero award-winning thrillers August Snow, Lives Laid Away, and Dead of Winter. Jones was born in Lansing and currently lives in Farmington Hills. A TV adaptation of the August Snow series is currently in the works with ABC, produced and headlined by another Michigan native, Keegan-Michael Key. Thank you, Stephen, for joining us.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you. And hello, everybody. You know, I muted myself. I am so sorry about that. I'm just so used to not saying anything at home. But it's great to be here, and thank you very much for having me, folks. So, we're here this evening to talk about my latest book in the August Snow series. And the August Snow series started with the book, self-titled book, August Snow, and followed through on Lives Laid Away, the second book. And this is the third in the series, Dead of Winter, which is published by Soho Press. So that when you go into the Bay County Library, you can ask for Dead of Winter from Soho Press, the kind folks there. I'm glad to be here. It's always a little hard to talk about. I'm sure some of you may have a question as to what my writing process is, how I go about things, but let me tell you a little bit first about who the character August Snow is. August Snow is a former Marine and ex-police lieutenant detective, one of the youngest ever in the Detroit Police Department. And he was fired from the Detroit Police Department because he started an investigation into malfeasance in generating from the mayor's office. Who would have thought about malfeasance in the mayor's office? Well, anyway, he was fired. He sued for wrongful dismissal. And though the trial was painful, he won $12 million in settlement money. And that's a lot of money. But what is that compared to having lost a piece of your soul, having been fired from something that you really enjoyed and really felt you were good at? So the backstory on August is he goes off to Europe and Southeast Asia, essentially to drink himself to death. That doesn't work, so he returns home, and home for August is Southwest Detroit, otherwise known as Mexican Town. And August's heritage, his cultural heritage, is his mother was Mexican American artist, and his father was an African American policeman, a cop for the Detroit police force. So August is mixed, and while some may wonder how that works, his Mexican American heritage and his African American heritage, August sees no problem with it. I mean, you can go from New York to Chicago to Los Angeles and see these minorities, African American and Mexican American, don't often play well together. August is proud of his heritage, and he sees no dividing line in himself. In fact, he feels fortunate enough to have his mother's culinary skills, making all sorts of wonderful Mexican food, and occasionally some of his father's Southern heritage comes out in the kitchen. It's been suggested that in reading the books, you may find yourself getting hungry. And that's true. You can actually tell the areas where my stomach was rumbling. My stomach wanted a nice tostada with chorizo beef, or a nice scotch. As I mentioned, he returned home to Mexican Town, to his family home. His parents are no longer with us, and that is a pain in his heart that he tries to heal by being on his own. But he starts fixing up houses on the street that he was raised, flipping those houses. And before you know it, he is surrounded by people that are attracted to him, that love him, because he shows, whether he'd like to or not, he shows these people care and concern. And it's also about his love for the neighborhood, his love for Mexican Town, and his love for Detroit. And while I'm talking about Detroit, there are a number of things that I mention in the book about Detroit. Detroit has its own personality, its own rhythm, just like most any city. And I usually say, if you took the detective Harry Bosch, if you're familiar with Michael Connelly's Harry Bosch, if you took Bosch out of Los Angeles and put him in Detroit, and if you took August Snow out of Detroit and put him in LA, neither one of them would know what the heck was going on. Because each city is different. Each city has its own unique personality. And I try to convey that personality through the books. And what you'll discover is the fact that Detroit is often portrayed in the media in kind of a stereotypical shorthand. And that shorthand is black and white conflict, ruins of buildings and neighborhoods, the big difference between rich and poor, and also sparks flying on an assembly line, an auto assembly line. And there is so much more to Detroit than that. I was in Mississippi 4 years ago, for the Mississippi Festival of the Book, which was absolutely wonderful. Just thousands of people showed up. A number of great authors were there. But I was on a panel and someone asked me, are all of the foods that I mentioned in the book, between the action and dialogue, are all of those foods available? And I don't know what people think, but in Detroit, if you want high French cuisine, you can have it. If you want Brazilian, you can get it. Vietnamese, Korean, Greek, Chinese, Lebanese, Italian, Polish, Hungarian. You want any kind of food, that food is here, made by wonderful restaurants and fantastic people. So that's whatever kind of food you want. There's theater. There's always been and always will be a variety of music. There is, I mentioned in the book, a restaurant downtown, in downtown, and not a fancy place. You know, art students go there, jazz aficionados go there. The lights are low, the food is good, the drinks are not watered down, and it's called Northern Lights. And at Northern Lights, on occasion, you can hear the guitar sounds of one of the last living funk brothers that backed up Marvin Gaye and the Supremes and the Temptations. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful environment. It's fantastic. So the city offers a lot. It's a very diverse, rich city. So I guess that's my way of saying, don't believe everything you hear about Detroit. I know Detroit has its very tough image, and it can be a tough city. Let's put it this way. People from Brooklyn are scared of folks from Detroit. You know what I'm saying here? But anyway, back to August snow. In the first book, August Snow, he goes up against um, uh, illegal banking. He's not looking for trouble. Trouble seems to find August. And he is someone that, having served in the military and having served in law enforcement, he knows that there is that middle area of justice that does not always get served. And with his training, both military and police, he looks for that space to make justice. And helping him along the way is his Mexican-American godfather, his padrino, Tomas. And Tomas is a big man, covered head to toe with tattoos. He's lived a hard life, but he's come through it with a lot of humor and a lot of love. And he's married to Elena, his wife of so many years. And Elena is his heart and soul. She is the angel that guides him. He's rough and tumble, but if Elena tells him to do something, you better believe it, it gets done. But Tomas is a second gun for his godson, August. And there are a number of other characters that I've brought back throughout the series. His next door neighbors, August's next door neighbors, who are Carmela and Sylvia, elderly ladies who work together at Detroit water systems, have such a friendship that when they were both retired, they bought a house in Mexican Town, one that August had refurbished. And they are wonderful ladies. They look after him. He looks after them. And the only thing that I would warn you about them is if you find yourself visiting Carmela and Sylvia, don't eat the brownies. Very important. There are a couple of other characters, but one I want to mention is Jimmy Radman. And I hope if you've read the first book in the series, you've become familiar with Jimmy. A street kid, just trying to get through life, sleeping in his car. And because of August takes him under his wing and finds out that this street kid who's sleeping in his car is actually very talented at building, at fixing. And that brings me to the conclusion, and after 3 books, I think I can come to the conclusion that August is a good person that will not walk away from a fight. He does not like to see friends or family hurt. And he will be the first to step into the line of fire to help those that require his help. That's a little bit about August Snow. And as I mentioned, the third book in the series, Dead of Winter, has just come out. Well, it came out in May. Let me, if you don't mind, some of the reviews are, well, the reviews have been pretty good. Let's see. Are you familiar with Joe Ide? His last name is spelled I-D-E. And he writes a mystery thriller series called IQ. And those are the initials of his character. But Joe says of this book, August Snow is a terrific character, rough and tumble, undaunted, and implacably tenacious. His wit's so sharp, it'll make you bleed. Snow protects his neighborhood from rapacious one-percenters, Mack Jones skillfully weaving relevance into a blue streak, bone-breaking story. Highly, highly recommended. Well, that's nice. That's really nice. I met Joe, and he's a nice person. So that's a little bit about August Snow and the third book. I should hope that some of you have questions.
Well, I know I certainly have at least a couple. I'm so glad that you mentioned the food in the book, because that was something that I really enjoyed. And I love it. Reminded me a little bit of Louise Penny's books. I don't know if you've read any of her, take place in Quebec.
Love
and one of the things I enjoy about listening to those is the descriptions of the food. And I found that in your book too. And I really wanted some huevos rancheros at the end. I don't know how many times he he had those, but really enjoyed that part of it.
Well, you know, food is how you can learn more about someone's culture. It's a vicarious way of enjoying that culture.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, just nice and authentic. It was good, nice to see him cooking and and sharing that with people that he cared about. Sharing meals.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's something that's important. And also all of the history, and all the locations in Detroit. Now, is that something that you were already very, very familiar with? I know you've lived in the area and grown up in Michigan. How much research do you have to do about locations or anything like that?
It's funny. I've lived in Detroit, the Detroit area, for well over 40 years. And when I started writing the book, I really had to go back over those years to see what I had absorbed. A lot of people just go through their day, walk through their day, run through their day. They get the job done. But sometimes you miss the architectural beauty of a building that you've been walking past or that you work in for a long time. So it was a rediscovery process for me. Mm-hmm. A small point is the fist in the middle of Detroit
Yeah.
when you're on Jefferson Avenue.
Mhm.
That was initially supposed to be the first of, I believe, 7 pieces to a full statue of Joe Louis. And the designer is a Mexican American by the name of Robert Graham. His mother was Mexican American, but it was never completed. So what you're looking at when you see that fist and that wonderful arm, articulated arm, was supposed to be this giant statue of one of Detroit's famous sons, Joe Louis. So, yes, go
Just
ahead.
never was completed.
It was never completed.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did not know that. I've been there many times, and I'll have to tell my husband.
Yes.
We love Detroit. We love going. We love the food, and yeah, interesting talking about it, and somebody asking you, can you really get that food? Very interesting.
Well,
Now,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, another thing that surprises me is when folks ask about the literary heritage of Detroit, and it's a little. The question is, at first it was a little off-putting. I didn't know quite what they were saying, and now it just aggravates the heck out of me. Because there is such a rich literary history in Detroit. Jim Harrison, Steve Hamilton, one of my favorite writers, and a person who has, I can't emphasize this enough, he's been very supportive of me, Lauren Estelman. But the one that gets me is when I'm talking about this with someone and they give me a strange look, like I've just slapped them. And they say, "What? You mean Elmore Leonard was from Detroit?" Come on. Yeah, Dutch Leonard was from Detroit. He was born in the Crescent City, New Orleans, but moved here as a babe. He's a graduate of, I believe, U of D Jesuit in Wayne State. He worked at Campbell Ewald writing Chevrolet commercials. And in fact, he wrote one of the best Westerns ever, 3:10 to Yuma. Great book, great movie. So there's a rich cultural or rich literary heritage. I'm sure anyone who has read The Wicked Sister and The Marsh King's Daughter by Karen Dion. Karen Dion is from Michigan, and she, aside from being a brilliant writer, she is just an absolutely delightful person. So yes, there's a rich heritage here in Michigan.
Mhm. Oh. Well, how nice, and how nice that we might get to see it on the television.
Ah, yes, yes.
Yeah. So that's in the works, right?
It is in the works, but let's remember that I'm here in the Midwest.
Yeah.
They're in Hollywood. There's a little gap in there.
Oh, yes.
Um, but I'd like to announce to the folks that are with us tonight that um, I, me, I have been named consulting producer for the series. Oh,
Ooh.
please hold down those applause.
Congratulations.
Oh, stop it. Stop it. No, that just means that I have to make sure that everybody's Starbucks order is correct. That's simply what, and I have to bring my own chair. But yes, it is being developed now. One of the executive producers and the person that got the ball rolling, is, maybe you've heard of Keegan-Michael Key. And Keegan has been 150% supportive of this. He's an executive producer along with Imagine Studios, which is Ron Howard, Gaspin Media, um, and Paul Eckstein. And Paul Eckstein is a wonderful screenwriter. He's written for Narcos on Netflix, the first season of Narcos, and Law and Order Criminal Intent. So they're working on that along with ABC and a number of other good folks, including Tony Savastini, who's been with this project forever.
Yeah.
I say all of that to say those folks have I know it may appear to be a silly thing to say about Hollywood, but I implicitly trust the talents of the people behind the series. If it gets picked up, I'm happy. If it doesn't get picked up, I have a chair in the other room where I'm working on another book. So, and everything works out. And they're still making crunchy Cheetos. So,
Yes. My daughter's favorite, who happens to be named Vivian. So that was another thing. Every time when I was reading the book, Vivian reminded me of my daughter. We also call her Viv. Okay. Here's a question here. Will one year of the series be one book or just loosely based? So like, will the first season cover the first book, or has it gotten that far yet?
That's a great question. And I do not know as of yet if it will be a streaming offering or go to series on regular broadcast TV. If it is streaming, then it can be like one book, one season, 8 to 10 episodes. As a regular broadcast show, they would have to stretch that and, take out a little bit of the spicy language. And it does get spicy every once in a while.
They do get a little spicy, but that's, and we all need a little spice in our lives, don't we?
Well, you know, here's the thing. When the first book was published, which I can express to you what an absolutely wonderful moment that was for me. I was blessed with some great reviews, and the book won several awards. And the only review that I really worried about was that of my 95-year-old mother, because of the spicy language. And when I sat down with her, she said, you know, that was an enjoyable, very enjoyable story. And I greatly recommended it to some of the folks that I know. She said nothing about the language. And I could breathe after that. I really could.
Oh, yeah. Oh. How nice. Oh. We do without our mothers.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Does anybody else have any questions, or you can type them in the chat box, or you feel free to turn your camera on and ask if anybody would like to.
I'm here all night, kids, so.
I've monopolized the questions, you know, if anybody else has anything to throw in. But it might just be me.
I see a question here.
Okay, here we go.
How do you feel about gentrification in Detroit? How do I feel about it? I'm of two minds about the gentrification of Detroit. One mind, part of me says, this is a good thing. This is how the city will grow. And that gentrification has already borne some tremendous fruit. The other part of it, of me, worries that residents who have been here for 30, 40, 50, 60 years will get pushed out of the way to make that gentrification happen. One of the best things that I've heard recently is that recognition of long-standing neighborhoods in Detroit. It's been recognized by the current mayor and a high echelon of business people. I think they realize that the city can't grow if the neighborhoods are left out of the party. So there are good things. There are good things happening on a lot of fronts. Hope that answers the question.
I wanted to ask again, how did you pronounce it? I've been pronouncing it Joe Ide, but it's Ide?
Ide.
Okay, well, now I know.
Yeah, I have been pronouncing Joe's name Ide, but it is the Japanese pronunciation Ide.
Oh.
And if you ever meet him, please don't ask him if Joe, do you want to share a pizza? I made that mistake. I met Joe in Phoenix at a bookstore called The Poison Pen. And, after our session, we went to dinner, and, it was like I had known him all of my life, just after 2.5 hours. And Joe said, I think I'll get this pizza right here. And I said, hey, you want to share a pizza? And this man who comes up to my shoulder looked at me and said, get your own freaking pizza. Okay, Joe. But he's a wonderful person. He just don't get your own pizza though.
Pizza? And did he eat the whole pizza?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
It was, I didn't know whether to look at my food or look at him eating his food. Wow. It's amazing. But he's a wonderful writer. And just a good person. And I think if you go to any mystery conventions or thriller conventions, what have you, and you meet, this author, that author, you will 98.5% of the time, you'll be surprised at how humble and personable and truly compassionate people they are. I had the pleasure of meeting one of my heroes, Ian Rankin. And I'm standing at this reception, and this man just appears next to me. And, I was talking to somebody else, and this man appeared next to me, and the man next to me said, "Whew, I'd kill for a beer." And I knew where the beer was, so I turned to him and said, I'll get you a beer. And I saw it was Ian Rankin. And I just froze. And I think the next thing he said to me was, "I'm sorry, you're going to tell me where the beer is?" I was, yes. But good people. Good
Yeah.
people.
Oh, he's one of my favorite authors. Also, I love the Reba series. Yeah.
It's a
Oh, how cool.
It's a very supportive community of people.
How nice.
Yes. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions for Shell anymore?
Yeah, okay. So many authors are writing multiple series.
Yes.
I mean, it's really becoming ridiculously prolific, in my opinion. But is that a thought you have done?
I'm sorry?
Have you thought about doing something like that, another series, or are you just going to stick with the one for a while?
Writing a series can be exhausting, and it can turn into a meat grinder. And I don't want it to turn into a meat grinder for me. I am working on another story that is not August Snow. And the thing with me is it's been fun telling these stories, and I'm my first audience. And if I get bored with a passage, why am I going to say, well, let's hope you don't get bored with it, because I sure was. But yeah, I want to explore other stories. And please remember, I am the poster boy for AARP. I got started late. August Snow was published when I was 62. So over those years, you build up a number of ideas, and I'd like to pursue that. I don't want to cheat myself, and I don't want to cheat readers by finding myself thinking that I've gone from a storyteller to making widgets, making a product. So the short answer is I'm exploring other stories right now.
Well, that's exciting. Anybody else? Any more questions, Rochelle? Anything else? No, you're all out. Okay.
You're good.
Anybody else? Yeah. Yes, I think that's everything.
Any questions on what my process is?
Sure, yes. Share with us.
Well, I'll tell you what my process is. Get up in the morning, make myself a cup of coffee, usually at my age, decaf. And I worry about the story I'm working on. And then I go to bed. And then I get up the next morning and make myself a cup of coffee and sit and worry about the story that I'm thinking about. And then I go to bed. No, my process, it's very popular to think that writers have this process, and many do. Many folks who are writing have consider it their job. You know, you get up at 5 or 6 in the morning, just like Elmore Leonard did. The story about Elmore Leonard is he would get up at 5 o'clock, make himself a sandwich and a thermos of coffee. He would wrap the sandwich in wax paper, go to his home office, and work until 11:30 or 12. At 12 o'clock, he would unwrap his sandwich, drink his coffee, maybe gaze out at his garden. And then at 1 o'clock, he was back to writing longhand on yellow legal sheets. There are some people that have that process. For me, the process is, it's part procrastination and manic behavior. And that manic behavior becomes 3 or 4 chapters one night or one morning, and then 7 the next. And somehow there's order to them. So everyone has they're different process. The question is usually, are you a pantser or a plotter? Have you ever heard that? A pantser is somebody who flies by the seat of their pants. They start with the first chapter and let the story lead them. And that's a pantser. A plotter is someone who will have 3 notebooks full of notes, a murder board where everything is plotted out, and 10-page treatment. And then once they're satisfied, they go in and follow their own breadcrumbs. So it
So you're a
varies
pantser?
by author.
Yeah. You're
I'm
more of a
mostly
pantser?
a pantser. I'm mostly a
Yeah.
pantser. I will write notes, but I have a
Mhm.
propensity to lose those notes. But yeah, that's kind of a skewed look at my process.
Yeah. Oh, very interesting. Anybody else?
No?
No, I don't think so. Well, then we will bid you farewell. I thank you very much for joining us tonight. Very much enjoyed having you. This was wonderful and very interesting. I can't wait to see what comes next. We'll keep our eyes peeled for a possible TV series, but definitely for your next book, whether it's August Snow or not. So thank you again, Stephen Mack Jones. I put a link in the chat box to a link in the catalog with all of the August Snow books. If anybody wants to check them out, the link will take you right there. Check them out, place a hold. We've got ebooks, we've got physical books, there's audio books. So take a look at those or call your local branch and they can place a hold for you.
And if I could just say one more thing,
Mhm.
to the folks out there that are watching this now or who may watch it later, support your public library. It's a wonderful place. It's where magic happens. It's where the world opens up. And these folks are there to guide you to where these wonderful worlds are. So thank you. That's
Well, thank you. And on that lovely thought, we'll say goodnight. And thank you again. Thank you very much.
thank you, folks. Have a good evening.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Good night.